Welcome to video 119, and in this video I'll write the Destructible explode script. Okay, so make a new C# script, call it Destructible explode, and open it up. Okay, so private Destructible master, Destructible master. We'll make it public, float, explosion range, public, float, explosion force, private, float, distance, public int, raw damage, private int, damage to apply, private collider, struck colliders, private transform, my transform, private raycast hit, okay. I won't need the start and update methods. And I'll make a new method here called void explosion sphere. Set initial references. Here I'll say that Destructible master is get component Destructible master. No, not Destructible explode. That's better. And then my transform is equal to transform. Okay, now call set initial references and call explosion sphere using Destructible master dot event destroy me plus equal explosion sphere. Here I'll say my transform dot parent is equal to null, and then I can just say, well, get component collider dot enabled is equal to false, and this is because just for a moment the existing collider could potentially block a line cast that I'm going to use for a line of sight check. You'll see that in a moment. Now struck colliders is equal to physics dot overlap sphere, and where's the position? My transform dot position. It's the source, and the range explosion range. For each collider, COL in struck colliders. So now I'll iterate through each one. And while I'm at it, just outside of the for each loop, just before this gets big, I'll just say destroy GameObjects, and I'll just put some hard-coded 0.05 seconds. Now I should just comment that you may, depending on what you're doing, you may want to make another script that specifically is for destroying the game object, and it subscribes to event destroy me and destroys the game object after some duration. In my case, I'm just keeping it a bit simpler. I'm just doing it inside of this explode script. But really, to make it even more modular, I would take it out and put it in another script that's just for destroying this game object after a brief duration. Okay, now the first thing I'll do is to calculate distance is equal to vector3 dot distance, my transform dot position, and col dot transform dot position. And I'm going to use that to calculate the amount of potential damage to apply. So damage to apply is equal to brackets int. This is to convert the float to an int. and I'll use mathf.abs absolute. This ensures that the value I return from my calculation is positive and cannot be negative. There's a small possibility that it can be a very tiny negative number, and I don't want that because it then can get added to the various healths of whatever can have health. And so to avoid that, just use mathf.abs. And my equation will be to have the number 1 and subtract from it the distance over the range. So the distance between for example, the barrel and the enemy, and divide that by the explosion range, which is the maximum range, and then multiply that fraction, so 1 minus that, we'll multiply that against the raw damage. So, for example, you can tell by that then that, well, I'll just let me write it down, I'm talking too much. 1 minus distance, let me just put that here, 1 minus distance over explosion range. Okay, and let me just check I haven't got too many brackets, and multiply all of that by the raw damage. Okay, so what's happening here is, as I said, so let's say, for example, explosion range is 15 meters. The actual distance is like 1 meter, so that means they're very close to the exploding barrel. Then, of course, that's 1 over 15, a very small number. 1 minus that doesn't reduce 1 by very much, times the raw damage, and then that damage will get applied to that enemy or whatever it is. So the further away you are, the less damage you take. So a nice simple equation. Now, I would like to do a line of sight check. So I'll say if physics.linecast. Where's my starting? So my transform.position col.transform.position, and I want to out hit. Okay. And this is to protect the player, really. What I'm doing here is a line cast to protect the player from damage. So you could ignite a barrel, throw it over a wall, and even if it's close to you, the wall will protect you because the line cast will touch the wall before it can touch the player, and so then damage will not be applied to the player. But I'm not applying the same protection to enemies because it's just less fun, because the enemies will block damage to each other if they're in a group, and you don't want that happening. You want the whole group to just get smashed. It's much more fun that way. So I won't provide that protection to the enemies. So by writing the following code, if hit.transform is equal to col.transform, or col.transform.getComponent enemy take damage, so just look for that, enemy take damage is not equal to null. So this way, enemies in front of each other will not block the application of damage from an explosion. The line cast will not care about that. Well, it doesn't matter. That's why I'm saying or whatever, any enemy that has anything that has this script on it, whatever, it's just going to have the damage applied now to that COL collider transform. So col.transform.send message, and again, it's that process damage. And the value to send is damage to apply, and no receiver required, so don't require receiver. Now I won't stop there, I'm going to send another one, so I want the player to also be able to get damage. Now I hadn't thought of this before, so that's why it'll look not as good, so I have to copy this, have another line. Really what I should do is to go in on the player, make a new script called player take damage, and on that player script, that take damage script, to have a method called process damage. But since I hadn't thought that far ahead, I mean, I could do that at any time. It's a simple change. I'm just going to go to the player script and copy the relevant method name. So inside of Unity, under the player scripts, well, the master scripts rather, so let me go to the master scripts, open up the player. That method is call event player health deduction. So this is the one that's responsible for actually deducting the player's health, because I hadn't made it so that the player would have a take damage script, but in hindsight that is what I should have done, and that would have been much better, and I would have just used one call only, one type of method to call only. Anyway, so that's it. So that's how it looks now. Alright, so with that done, so that's the damage application. Now I'll have a, I guess a check for the rigid body. So if col transform.getComponent rigid body is not equal to null, now I can apply an explosion force. And actually, hold on, what am I doing .transform there for anyway? I don't need to do that. In fact, I don't believe I need to do that at all. I'm pretty sure I can just do it like that. Let me just check for a moment. col.sendMess. Oh yeah, sure. I don't need to say .transform at all. So let me get rid of transforms here. It's unnecessary. That's much better. So col.getComponent, right, that reads a lot better. Okay, so col.getComponent rigid body .add explosion force, and the value to supply is explosion force. My transform.position is the source of the explosion. What else? An upwards modifier. Oh no, I need to supply a radius, so that will be explosion range. And we'll just check if I have anything else. Explosion range, blah blah blah. Okay, so for the upwards modifier, I'll just say 1. And force mode dot impulse, definitely. Okay. And I think that's everything. I think that's it. I think that's the script done. The best way to know is to try it out and see how it works. But pretty much what I'm doing, so just to recap, I disable that collider on this barrel, for example, so that this line cast can't be blocked. That's the primary reason for disabling it. And yes, if it's in the player, like the player's holding it in their hands, it is very important to unparent it as well. Well, just so that it explodes outside of the player. Well, not outside of the player, but, you know, it's not part of the player as a game object. And, well, I guess that's it. Enough talking. Let me just go and attach it. Exploding barrel. And go back to the destructible scripts and attach the explode script. Now the range, I'll put something like 17 for that. The force, maybe like 800. That's quite a high force. Raw damage, maybe 300. No, actually, on the other hand, I think I might put that to 100. I think that's overdoing it. Big time. Okay, so that's that. Let me, I need to show you something else as well. So in the spawn, just change that to like 7. I need to show you that there's some stuff we need to change with the rigid bodies, well, the ragdoll, sorry, on the enemies, just so that it doesn't look so funny. Okay, so that's the barrel. So let me just throw it at them and then shoot it. So of course I haven't made anything else. Now, hold on. You didn't get to see it. Well, what can happen is when you have a high velocity explosion and the ragdoll is affected, the ragdoll can act funny and start flying all over the place, like the limbs start to separate all over the place. And, well, the fix to that is quite simple. So go ahead and just grab the golem. So I didn't get to show it to you, it happening. It didn't happen, but it can happen. So just to avoid that possibility, let me just show you what to do. Find all of the ragdoll components that have a joint on them. And here it is, character joint, and enable projection. So turn that on. So find all of them that have that and turn it on. Okay, so these two have it. Enable projection. What about the spine? Let's check each of the ones. Okay, yep, enable projection. Done. The head, does it? Yes, it does. So enable projection. Okay. The arm, yes, they do as well. Enable projection. Now the other side. The right upper arm and the right forearm. Enable projection. So that's on the character joint. Okay, so that's all done. Apply. Saved. Close that. Good. So let's play that again. This time I'll just maximize so I can easily see everything on screen. Okay, so I take the barrel. You saw previously that it did hurt the player. Turn on this. Boom. Alright, nice. Working really, really well. Ooh, that guy's flying quite far, far away. Ouch. Well, that's it. So, yep, it's working really, really nicely. Well, we have got to keep going, so that's only just now. It takes damage from bullets. It appears that the explosion effect itself is fine. Let me just get rid of the rotation on this. Just apply that. So all the changes so far are done. And why don't I duplicate this barrel? Move one about there. Save that. Hit play. Okay, jump in. Boom. Okay. Right. So you saw that. That worked very well, in fact. Okay, so that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you, I guess, in the next video.